Hey there, I'm Wendy. Today, we're diving deep into the magical world of nature. Are you ready to join me on this awesome adventure? Together, we'll uncover the secrets of ecosystems and learn all about the amazing creatures that call them home. Here's what's in store for us. First off, we'll dive into some cool new words and find out what they mean. Then we'll explore what this whole nature thing is all about and learn about some new terms along the way. After that, it's story time. We'll cuddle up and read all about animals and where they live. And last, but not least, we'll test our smarts with some fun questions and word games. So, are you excited? Let's dive in.
Let's turn to our vocabulary. The first is algae. It's noun. It means very small plants without leaves, stems, or normal roots that grow in and or near water. Here is an example. Algae produce much of Earth's oxygen, and many animals, such as whales and fish, depend on them for food. The variation is alga. The next one is ecology. It's noun, and it means the scientific study of the relationship between living things and their environment. Here is an example. Justin had always enjoyed observing animals in their habitats, so deciding to study ecology at college was an easy decision. The variations is ecologies. The next one is ecosystems. It's noun. It means communities of living and non-living things that interact in particular environments. Here is an example. Whether in a lake, puddle, forest, or dead log, on a mountaintop, or beneath a glacier, all ecosystems contain living things and non-living things that interact together. The variation is ecosystem. The next one is environment. It's noun. It means the air, water, minerals, organisms, and all other living and non-living factors that surround and affect an organism. Here is an example. The polar bear is designed to exist and thrive in a cold environment. The variations is environments. The next one is habitat. It's noun. It means the place where an animal or plant normally lives and grows. Here is an example. The ocean is the shark's natural habitat. The variations is habitats. The next one is organisms. It's noun. It means living things. Here is an example. After turning over a log from an old fallen tree, Diana discovered many organisms living there, such as earthworms and millipedes. The variations is organism. The last one is tolerant. It's adjective. It means able to endure something without being harmed. Here is an example. Melissa planted the pepper plants in the sunniest spot in the garden because they were highly tolerant of light and heat. The variation is none. Look at this picture. Now can you describe what you see in the image? Tell all of the living things you can see. Good job. There are humans, trees, bears, lions, deer, elephants, jellyfish, squid, foxes, and squirrels. All over the world, from areas as wide as the ocean to areas as small as a puddle on the sidewalk, life exists. Some forms of life are easy to see, for example, humans or flowers, whereas other forms of life can only be viewed by using a microscope, for example, bacteria or some types of plankton. Each life form is suited to live in a certain place. For example, fish have gills that allow them to breathe and live in water. Can you remember the name for the place where an animal or plant is specially suited to live and grow? Good job, that's habitat. Now you are going to learn more about the different types of habitats. For the next several days, you will hear about the different places where both living and non-living things exist and how they interact with one another. You will also learn more about the feeding relationships between living organisms and how humans can take better care of the earth. You will learn about something called the balance of nature. If something is balanced, what does that mean? That's right. It is in harmony. All parts have an equal amount. Can you recall the groups of people you learned about recently who tried to live in long-term balance with nature? Good job, that's the Native Americans. At times, the balance of nature is thrown off by different events. Can you think about what types of things might throw off the balance of nature? The titles of stories can often give us clues as to what the content is about, like titles such as Natural Changes to the Environment and Human Changes to the Environment. I'll say that both nature and humans are responsible at times for throwing off the balance of nature. Now you should listen carefully to learn more about animals and their homes. You have to listen for the main ideas or the most important points of this read aloud, and I'm going to ask you to summarize these main ideas after you hear the read aloud.
Well, it's time to read our very first chapter, Animals and Their Habitats. How can squirrels live in cities? Why do bears live in forests? And why do whales live in oceans? Do you ever wonder about such things? Plenty of people do. Hi, my name is Zeke, and I am one of those people who never stops wondering and asking questions. When I was your age, I asked, what do worms eat? Why do some animals migrate from place to place? Where do mosquitoes live? How do flowers live in the desert? Who can survive on glaciers? When I grew up, I decided to become a scientist to try and find the answers to my growing number of questions. The science that I studied in college is called ecology. Its name comes from the Greek language, the word oikos, meaning house or household, spelled eco in English, and the suffix ology, meaning the study of. Ecology is the study of households, the households of living things, such as plants and animals. That is, plants and animals do not live alone. They are part of a system of households, communities called ecosystems. As an ecologist, I study ecosystems all over the world. What prefix do these words share? Good job, eco. Based on the context, what do you think this prefix means or relates to? That's right, Earth's environments. I learn about plant and animal relationships and how they interact with one another and with their environment. I love my job because I help others understand how everything on Earth is connected. On my travels a few years back, I met a friend of yours, Rattenborough. Do you remember Rattenborough? He is the rat who helped you learn about how we classify animals. He and I made a great team because he is able to squeeze into tight spaces and can poke around in nooks and crannies that I can barely get my big toe inside. Rattenborough told me what quick learners you are and asked if I would come talk to you about ecosystems. I can hardly wait. So, let's begin. Ecosystems exist on plains and in deserts, forests, lakes, rivers, and oceans. They may be as small as a puddle or as large as a rainforest. They may occupy water or land. No matter their size or location, ecosystems always include living organisms. Organisms are sorted by species. Species are groups of living things that share similar characteristics. For example, you are a member of the human species. You may look quite different from the person sitting next to you, but you are similar enough so that nobody will mistakenly think that you may be a member of the cat or dog species. What similarities do humans share with one another? You are right, multiple body systems, such as skeletal, muscular, nervous, etc. Ants belong to their own species, quite different from humans. Jellyfish and elephants each have their own separate species, too. Each species is unique and has characteristics or traits unlike any other species. What trait would you say makes humans a unique species? That's right, they are. Advanced cognitive abilities, advanced problem-solving skills, creativity, innovation, create and use tools, adapt to various environments, and social complexity. An ecosystem is home to a variety of species, groups of living plant and animal organisms. But an ecosystem includes lots more than just living things, and many parts of an ecosystem are hidden from view. Sunlight, water, air, sand, rocks, and soil are all important parts of an ecosystem. These non-living parts help determine what kinds of plants and animals are able to live in each different ecosystem. Who can point to some non-living things in this image? Good job! Mountain. Rock. Do you see these bones? House. River. For example, plants needing shade and plenty of water would not be very tolerant of, or able to endure, hot desert climates. Each species has its own habitat or special home within the ecosystem. I know that Rattenbrush has taught you so much about animals this year. He may have also introduced you to animal habitats, or homes, when you were in the first grade. Do you remember the names of any of those habitats? Let's take a look at them. They are temperate deciduous and tropical rainforest, Sonoran desert, East African savanna, Arctic tundra, and freshwater and saltwater habitats. Forests, deserts, savannas, the tundra, saltwater oceans, and freshwater lakes, rivers, ponds, and streams. All of these are home to a number of animals and plants. Sometimes you will hear people call these large areas habitats, and at other times you may hear them called ecosystems. Both are correct. Biome is another name you might hear for a large-scale ecosystem, but ecologists do not all agree on precisely how to define what a biome is, or how to classify the number of biomes that exist on Earth. You may learn more about biomes in later grades. For now, we will stick with the terms habitats and ecosystems. The word habitat can also refer to a smaller area that is part of an ecosystem. In other words, a habitat refers to the preferred home of a plant or animal. An ecosystem, then, would be a collection of habitats. But don't get the idea that an ecosystem is just a group of homes for animals and plants to live in by themselves. In every ecosystem, perhaps the most important feature is the interaction between living and non-living things. To understand the difference between ecosystems and habitats, let's look at rainforests. A rainforest is an ecosystem, a community of living and non-living things. What are some things you would expect to find in a rainforest? Let's take a look at the image. They are snake, jaguars, kinkajou, snail, worm, turtle, blue poison dart frog, butterfly, monkey, and human. Within the rainforest ecosystem, there are many different species of plants and animals, such as trees, worms, snails, butterflies, frogs, snakes, jaguars, monkeys, turtles, as well as some humans living in dwellings. Each one of these species lives in its own special area, a just right habitat where it can thrive within the rainforest ecosystem. Worms live beneath the soil. Some monkeys scamper along the forest floor, whereas others swing from the high tree branches far above the ground. Jaguars rest on low-lying branches. All living things occupy habitats to which they are particularly suited. Butterflies flit amongst the ferns, and the snail propels itself along a leaf. More than one species may share the same habitat. As you can see, the turtle and frog do, but they interact in a way that helps shape the whole community or ecosystem. Physical factors of the environment affect and allow certain organisms to live in certain habitats. A habitat supplies all of an organism's needs for survival: food, water, shelter, and space. Organisms have adapted to their changing environments over time, allowing them to survive. Let's look at a few of these plant and animal adaptations in different habitats and ecosystems around the world. I mentioned the rainforest and its many habitats. Rainforests are just one type of forest. Forests vary widely, depending upon climate and soil differences. The trees of some forests are deciduous, which means they drop their leaves every year, whereas others are coniferous, which means they are cone-bearing evergreens. Pay attention to the picture on the left upside. You can see that sometimes deciduous and coniferous trees grow in the same place. Different types of forests support different types of plant and animal life. What forest animals can you name? Some, like jaguars, have the balance needed to lie on the low-lying branches of trees. Bears have adapted to their habitat by growing claws needed for climbing trees to find food. Others, like monkeys, have long tails for gripping tree branches as they climb higher and higher. The beaks of some birds are well designed for breaking open seeds, whereas others are designed for sipping nectar from flowers. Deserts are arid regions, marked by little rainfall. Arid places are places that are very dry. Can you tell which groups of Native Americans lived in the arid desert? That's right, ancestral Pueblo, Hopi, Zuni, etc. Let's continue. Succulents. Plants with spiny, waxy leaves are often found in the desert. These special plants, such as cacti, are able to store water in their stems. The word succulent can also be used to describe things that are juicy or full of moisture. Let's continue. Some desert plants have long root systems, enabling them to suck up water at a distance, and most desert plants are spaced wide apart, avoiding competition for water. Some desert insects, such as certain types of beetles, have waxy bodies that help them reduce water loss. Other animals, like the famous camels, are able to survive for long periods of time without drinking water because they store water in their bodies and have adapted to be able to tolerate high body temperatures. Savannas, or grasslands, usually have few trees or shrubs. Who can name a place where there is a savanna? That's Africa. Rainfall varies, with some grasslands being wetter than others. The types of grasses vary too, depending upon temperatures and the amount of rainfall in the region. Sometimes grasses are seasonal, growing only in winter or spring. Where this is the case, animals often adapt their habits to match the growth of plants in their ecosystem. For example, when little grass is available, antelopes migrate, and some small rodents hibernate. Who can share what it means to migrate? Right, to move to a new place to find food and/or a warmer climate. What does it mean to hibernate? Good, to spend winter in a dormant or inactive state. Because there are few places to hide from enemies in the open grasslands, antelopes display another adaptation for survival. Known for their speed, they run at rates greater than 50 miles per hour. Arctic lands are called the tundra. These treeless areas near the North Pole are cold for most of the year. The Arctic tundra is dark all winter long, and there is permanently frozen water beneath the ground. During brief summers of constant sunlight, a few plants grow, but there is very little vegetation. One animal that is well adapted to the Arctic tundra is the Arctic fox. Who remembers where the Arctic and subarctic regions are, and which Native American group lived in these areas? That's right, Inuit. He has a short, round body with lots of fur and little skin exposed to the cold. Lemmings, small rodents of the tundra, burrow under the snow to conserve heat. whereas many other animals, like the caribou in this image, migrate to warmer areas for the winter. Ecosystems are not limited to land areas. You know that living organisms also live in aquatic, or watery, habitats. Who can name different types of aquatic habitats? Good job! They are freshwater, saltwater, lakes, ponds, oceans, rivers, streams, etc. Freshwater ecosystems, those with little salt, include lakes and ponds, as well as rapidly running streams and rivers. In still waters, algae will float on the surface of the water, but in running streams, algae clings to rocks, preventing the currents from washing it away. The physical adaptations of water insects, such as long, claw-footed legs, enable them to hold onto rocks and avoid being swept away by the currents. How is it that fish are able to breathe underwater? Yes, fish breathe through gills, which allows them to breathe underwater without having to come to the surface. Saltwater ecosystems support a wide variety of plant and animal life. The organisms that call Earth's oceans home cannot survive without the salty content of its waters. Like smaller creatures on land that are eaten by bigger creatures, ocean creatures have adapted in many different ways, including camouflage and poisonous spines. Many fish have special ways of lighting up to either attract prey or ward off danger. Can you find the octopus camouflaged in its saltwater habitat? Yes, it's here! Together, we will explore plant and animal life in ecosystems around the world, remembering that everything on Earth is interconnected. Next time, we'll look at some of the links that make these connections. How do you think you are connected to an ant or a bee? You'll soon find out if you are right. Alrighty, it's quiz time. I'm going to ask you some questions about what we just learned. Try your best to answer in full sentences by repeating the question in your response. Ready? Let's do this. Here's the first question 1. If someone studies the field of science called ecology, what do they examine? You are right. They examine the relationships between living things and their environment. What is this person called? Good. This person is called an ecologist. Now, number 2. What is a habitat? Good job. A habitat is the special home of a certain species. What are some examples of habitats that you heard in the read aloud? Some example of habitats are soil, low-lying branches, trees, etc. 3. What makes up an ecosystem? You are right. Animals' habitats, including living and non-living things, make up an ecosystem. What are some examples of ecosystems that you heard in the read aloud? Some examples of ecosystem that I heard in the read aloud are tundra, forests, oceans, streams, ponds, lakes, savannas, deserts, etc. 4. Compare and contrast ecosystems and habitats. They are alike because they are both homes for living things. They are different because a habitat is the preferred, usually smaller, home of a plant or animal, but an ecosystem includes an entire community, usually larger, of both living organisms and non-living things. Interactions between living and non-living things are the important part in an ecosystem, rather than just a place that provides a home. 5. We know that organisms become tolerant of their habitats through adaptation. One example of this is algae clinging to rocks so it won't wash away. Name other examples of these kinds of adaptations you heard about in the read aloud. As I heard in the read aloud, other examples of these kinds of adaptations are succulents storing water in their stems, allowing them to live in the arid desert. The Arctic fox having a short, round body and lots of fur, allowing it to survive in extreme cold. The antelope migrating and running very fast, allowing it to survive in the grassland. 6. How would you summarize the main ideas of today's read aloud? My summary is like this. Ecology is the study of the environments of living things. Animals have adapted in ways that make them well suited to live in certain habitats. Habitats are homes which make up ecosystems. Ecosystems include living and non-living things. All living and non-living things in habitats and ecosystems are interconnected. 7. Today, you heard that both living and non-living things are part of an ecosystem. Can you think of a way in which non-living things, such as rocks or sand, help animals survive? Rocks provide shade. The sand is a place an animal could burrow in to hide, etc. Great job, everyone. You all did an awesome job. Now, let's move on to the next fun activity, word work. Our word work today is tolerant. In the read aloud, you heard, plants needing shade and plenty of water would not be very tolerant of or able to endure hot desert climates. Say the word tolerant with me. Tolerant means able to endure something without being harmed. Here is an example. Chantel explained to her father that because she had eaten peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for lunch for so many years, she was no longer tolerant of them. What is something that you have observed that is tolerant of something else? What is something that you are tolerant of? Be sure to use the word tolerant when you tell about it. Responses with complete sentences. For example, our older dog is tolerant of, or I am tolerant of. Okay, let's do the making choices activity. People have different thoughts and reactions to different situations. For example, some people have a hard time on roller coasters and are not tolerant of them. But other people might like roller coasters very much and may be quite tolerant of them. I'm going to name something. If you can tolerate it, say, I am tolerant of. If you cannot tolerate it, say, I am not tolerant of. Explain your reasons for being tolerant or not. 1. A messy room. 2. Bad manners. 3. Loud music. 4. Raw vegetables. 5. Video games. 6. Having a pet. Well, that's all the time we have for today, friends. So goodbye, adios, cheerio, until we meet again.